Hello and welcome to this program where we will be discussing the issues and challenges on the road to elections 2020. Joining me on the program today are Members of Parliament, Madam Gail Teixeira and Mr. Joseph Hamilton. Thank you to the both of you for being here today.
Thank you for having us here, Susan.
Thank you.
Now, on today's program in particular, the issue we'll be discussing is that the challenges we're facing at the Guyana Elections Commission. We've had a series of decisions by the Commission over the past few months that are questionable. And more recently, on Tuesday of this week, we had a decision supported by the GECOM chair to remove approximately 20,000 persons from the list on the ground that they have not uplifted their ID cards over the years. This issue, we thought, was put to bed by the chairman herself in the past and more recently by the Chief Justice. So, it begs for the legality of this decision. Madam Gail Teixeira, your views on this?
Well, I think that this decision is really a travesty, and it's really it is so bizarre in the sense that the Constitution is clear, the ruling of Justice Singh herself is clear, the ruling of the Chief Justice in August is clear, and the laws of our country, and the Constitution, of course, that what has happened, this is an unlawful act by GECOM to consider disenfranchising people merely on the grounds that they haven't uplifted their ID cards. We don't know what is the number really. You see some people say 20, some say 25, some say 28. We're all guessing. But the issue is that as long as, one, the Constitution says on what grounds you can vote, and this is what the Chief Justice ruled. You're 18, you're Guyanese, you're a Commonwealth citizen living here for a year. That's basically it. And the grounds on which you cannot vote, you're not eligible to vote, you're under 18, you're not a Guyanese, you're not a Commonwealth citizen, legally here for a year, you are certified mentally insane, you're imprisoned, and of course you're dead. So someone not uplifting the ID has nothing to do with this. And the worst part of the decision, I know Joe would have noticed it, is that they're saying people haven't uplifted their card. They'll take them off the OLE for March election, right, but they remain on the national database. Correct. Which is bizarre, because once you're on that list and you're 18 and over, you're allowed to vote. So they know that what they're doing is unlawful. They know that. And just to say that the biometrics, when we introduced the biometrics, anybody, and that's why Surge Valley in 2015 with 35,000 people who had uplifted their cards, instructed that people did not leave their ID cards to go and vote, because your folio is there. You go to a presiding officer, your folio is there, you can see your face, and they allow you to vote. So this is really, I mean, as I said, I began saying it's a travesty. It is one, I believe, that can be legally challenged. And the fact that they also said, one, they're going to publish the list. They're going to write the individual people. They said 21 days. No one knows when the 21 days started or when it will end. There's no announcements made by GECOM. So I believe this is to cause confusion.
And GECOM is already working with a timeline.
Yes, the Monday is the 4th, the end of the claims. Right. The 11th is the end of the objections. So this is coming at this moment, just in this week, I believe, is to cause confusion and to frighten people, frighten people.
I think if we could just step back for a bit, and Joe, you'll come in here. I think what is being created with this decision is a false link between having an ID card and being eligible to vote.
Yes.
And there is no such link, as we know.
The thing is, Susan, is every day the PNC would find something contentious every day. And I have said before, all the contention about a list, the PNC machinations, whilst these contentions are pre-elections, they are basically geared for post-elections.
Yeah.
When they lose power, they will have some reason
A basis, yeah.
and a basis to contest
Yeah.
the outcome of the election. That is all of this that is happening, that is what it is for. And I say to people, the only elections the PNC did not contest issues about lists and a wrong list, it was 2015,
Yeah.
when they got an inkling that they could have, might have won these elections. But you check, starting from 1992, right through the
We were the ones that had problems.
right. It was always the contestation. No, but even after the election 92, when things were, the PNC created confusion
Exactly, yeah.
after the elections on the basis of, if you recall, Gail,
Yes.
that persons didn't get to vote,
Yeah.
who by the thousands they support did not register to vote.
Yes.
But they still use that as a link of GECOM disenfranchising persons
Yes.
who in the first instance did not register to vote. So I'm saying if you go back in time, the contestation of these matters, starting with Granger saying 200,000 incorrect entries
Exactly.
are on the list. The fact is, we have had a process that, based on GECOM own record, they have just had 1,000 people objecting to a name during the period, even before the objection period starts or something like that, in the transaction they're talking about. They went on to say that, remember, all they had, the protest and whatever, and Granger saying we're attempting to disenfranchise tens of thousands of people.
Young people.
Young people who were not registered. The GECOM record is suggesting to us less than 10,000 new registered over 18 showed up
Yeah. It's
to
4,000.
register across the total country.
4,000.
What is the number?
It's about 4,000 new registrants.
4,000 new
New
registrants.
registrants.
What GECOM is attempting to do, the PRO and Lowenfield and the likes of Alexander and them, if you note, when they publish information, they say 13,900 transactions.
Yeah.
For people who don't know, they would think it is registration of new registrants.
Exactly.
When included in that is change of name, transfers, and all the other issues.
ID cards.
ID card. So that is what they're doing. GECOM has not published by itself any information that says that, listen, these are the numbers of persons who were new registrants, and these are the regions,
Yeah.
the amount of persons in each region. They're trying to hide this under this rubric of transactions.
Yeah.
And the uninformed would say, oh, it's 13,000 new registrants, when that is not so. And that's the point we were making. There was no need for a house-to-house registration. And they were saying that there's a need because we were attempting to disenfranchise. So that lie is put to rest. Now, the house-to-house registration, as we have argued, was to deregister persons. So now they have failed in that attempt. Corbyn and Alexander, they have returned to the fore. And I say to people, the wiliest of the fox in a GECOM is Vincent Alexander. The wiliest of the fox. I say to people. And these guys, and Gail would tell you, they know better. They know better, but it's a political agenda coming to this. So the new thing now is this ID card. It's a backdoor now to try to disenfranchise people who they didn't get to deregister during the house-to-house registration process. And the chairman, how do I explain what she has herself in? It's this way. People believe, and Granger have argued, when he was holding on about a person who's a judge and who got legal training to be chairman of Elections Commission. Suzanne, what GECOM needs as a chairman is a good manager. Most of the activities of GECOM it has to do with management and decision making. And this thing where people got in their head that, you know, once you're a good lawyer, once you're a judge, you could deal with this matter. And what you have is Alexander and Corbyn and Truckman and the PNC, they're setting these snake traps as they go along
Yeah.
for the chairman. And for whatever reason, she's not understanding that these are political snake traps. The first one was where she went in there right away and she accepted this conversation about merging the list. You know, when it really could not have been done, because you can't merge forms and a data set. You have to have two data sets to merge, and therefore we are seeing, and we have already spoken to this household registration, the details of it, how it is messed up, and that will create problems for the list. So Suzanne, I went back there to make the point that when this matter is put to rest, I can assure you, before we reach March, the PNC will return again via its commissioners to bring something in the mix to create confusion.
But I think, you know, to go back to the point you made about what is the objective of all this? Why are they doing this? And Mr. Jagdeo at his press conference on Thursday put two options, basically. One is that we have to recall the difference between the PPP and the APNU in the elections of 2015 is 4,526 votes. What they're trying to do is skew the voters' list to shift the balance in their favor. So 20,000 people knocked off would shift the favor possibly shift the balance of votes in their favor. And the other option, of course, is, as Joe said, to create the situation, a basis for challenging the results on March the 2nd. And of course, because we know that in the list of 20,000 odd people who haven't collected the list, there are PPP, PNC, unaligned, non-aligned people who are there, of course, including people who may have died, people who may be underage. We're really dealing in a minefield of lack of information. But there's the agenda, and I think as we get closer to the elections, and you're going to seeing more of these subterfuges to cause confusion, to intimidate people. Monday is the end of claims. And I'm saying that don't be surprised if the PNC brings a whole set of objections to people who are on the list, on the PLE legitimately, to cause again confusion. I think they want to prepare a basis too for delays. And so I think that we have been saying to people, collect your ID cards, because it is a tool, an instrument, as a Guyanese, you use in your daily business. And it's an important tool because not everybody has a passport. But if you don't have an ID card, you could vote with your passport. You could vote, as I said, with a folio. So that we have to challenge and we have to guide people to not be confused by all of this. And to make sure if they are, they can collect their ID cards, fine. There's another misinformation that just started today. This is through the whispers, as Jagdeo calls it, the whispers, which of course the PNC doesn't like when we use that word, whispers. But that of telling people that there'll be new ID cards issued. So none of these ID cards will be legitimate.
Yes.
So again, more confusion amongst people. And we have to make sure that our friends, our sympathizers, supporters are very knowledgeable about this. If you haven't collected your ID cards, to be on the safe side, collect it. If they do remove people, or they move in that direction, it will be a major challenge in this country, both legally and politically. What this decision is doing is going to have ramifications of this country, if they succeed, for decades to come, for years and years to come, unless this matter is resolved. And as we said, the matter is resolved. What more does the chairman need? The Constitution, her own ruling, the Chief Justice ruling, the electoral laws, what more does she need to stand up to the PNC and the commissioners in the GECOM?
And I think, Gail, that is what is causing the general public to be confused and to be concerned.
Exactly.
It's because these decisions, this one in particular, is so, it's clearly unlawful, it's unconstitutional, it's illegal. So when persons hear us say that, then they're wondering, well, how is this being entertained at the level of the commission in front of a retired justice, a retired judge. So that's what's causing the confusion.
Yeah.
They hear members of the opposition saying that, look, this is clearly unconstitutional and it's illegal. Yet the GECOM chair voted with the government commissioners.
But the point is, Susan, and Gail would tell you, for us who are around this thing along, we are not lawyers.
No.
But we have
It's not
a
rocket
good
science either,
grasp
right?
of all these matters. Matters of registration and electoral matters. Because we have been around this matter. And even before the folio, I can say this. There was no requirement that you take an identification document to vote. There was a prescription whereby if you went into the polling place to vote and you didn't have something to identify you, the law allowed for then, where two persons that live in the same constituency, in the same division, they could have identified you and
Swear.
swear before the presiding officer, and they also identify you as a person of this community, and you were allowed to vote. So the point is this where the now chairman, along with these political activists, they're trying to put this prescription that you must have ID card to vote. It has never been one, even before the vote. And now, to help with things like that, Gail would tell you, that is how we have now a folio with a photograph of the persons who are on the list, so that no impediment would be put before the voter that can disenfranchise them. Because you can look at the folio and you see that photograph is the man who is standing before you, or the woman, and that person is allowed to vote via the prescription allowed. So the point is, importantly, is listening. When the now chairman was appointed, people in this country, they had great enthusiasm, and they had an understanding that this would be smooth sailing. What is happening, Gail, now? Disappointment is creeping in. And I'm talking about across the spectrum. You got nothing to do with PPP. I'm talking about Guyanese. They thought that the shenanigans that happened under Patterson came to an end when Patterson was cast aside. And when this chairman was appointed, Guyanese felt comfortable then that, listen, this aggravation and this pain and suffering that we have to go through at the level of GECOM, every Tuesday we're holding our head and scratching our head. What next? What will happen? What will be said? People thought it was over. But now it seems like it is multiplying. And I would say this, that the Guyanese people are very disappointed.
I mean, the lack of confidence in GECOM over the last 10 months is astronomical. I cannot remember any election after 92 where there's been this lack of confidence, popular, across the country, whether APNU, PPP, anything else. And Joe is right. When Madam Singh came in, there was a lot of goodwill and faith that this would bring a new dispensation, we would get rid of all this stuff, we had some confidence. And regrettably, that is being shot completely out. And I hope that she recognizes that the fate of this country, the fate of this nation is in her hands. I mean, we've gone through a president who has defied the Constitution. Now we have a chairman who is defying the Constitution. But that is why the call by the PPP for the international experts. We need the gentleman from Canada to get in here now. We need the international IT specialist now, because it's that database that has to be monitored. We need the EU experts, we need the OAS experts, we need
Commonwealth Secretaries.
Commonwealth Secretaries. They need to come in now, because that is twofold. One is that it will give some assurance to the Guyanese public that there is an independent group of people in there who are in the mouth of the beast almost, because GECOM, sections of GECOM become like a rogue secretariat basically. that it will give some assurance to Guyanese that we have some people there looking after the interest in terms of democracy, rule of law, constitution. And in addition to that, it will help the integrity of the elections. We don't want, we know, of course, we challenged the Elections Commission of 2015, the election results. We went through the legal process, petition. It is now 5 years almost. Our case hasn't been heard. Who prevented the case from going forward? It is Lowenfield, the chief elections officer. When the petition was laid, he challenged it, that it should not be heard, which is, we are taking GECOM to the court, and GECOM is telling you, you have no right to bring a case. The Chief Justice then, Ian Chang, ruled in February 2016 that the case should be heard, the petition should be heard. Lowenfield went back and appealed again in 2016. It is now 2019, almost the end of it, and that appeal has not been heard in the Court of Appeal. So, the issues of, and we've been peaceful. We haven't broke up nothing, we haven't burned nobody, we haven't beat up nobody. You can be sure that APNU and his behavior is going to want to challenge everything and to create a basis for the elections being challenged in March, because they know they're going to lose. If the elections are tamper-free, tamper-proof, they're out. And when you listen to them talking, there's desperation in the things they're saying. Total desperation.
I think what is important as well for the public to understand is that we don't know who these 20,000 names are.
No.
And so this issue is not a political one. This issue affects all Guyanese.
Yeah.
So these 20,000 voters that they now want to deregister could be APNU supporters, his PPP supporters, people who are not interested at all in the elections. So the opposition and the opposition leader is fighting for the right
of the
all
Guyanese
people.
Of all Guyanese,
And the sacred right to vote.
Yeah. And importantly, Suzanne, people must know that to help the process, we have requested from GECOM, through our scrutiny hearing, a list of all the persons who have not yet uplifted their ID card in the different GECOM centers. GECOM is refusing to make the list available. So imagine you're a participant in the process. And that is how the election process, Gail would tell you, works smoothly and better when GECOM took the political contestants into its confidence and work with them to ensure we have an election that is credible. All of this that is happening with all these clouds, and I hope that the chairman recognizes, this will be a legacy of election management, and therefore we are saying, we say to people today, as Gail has said, if you have not uplifted your ID card, you were registered 2008 and beyond, and after at continuous registration, please go to the center to uplift your ID cards. And let me say this, a prediction I will give. When this is passed, Gail, I don't want to alarm people. And that's it is important, the question you just raised about bringing in all these technical experts to be there now. Because the last thing to delay elections, these people will try, is to merge that data that is contaminated with the CNRI in production of the OLE. And that will throw us into some waters. And Gail will tell you that in 1990, Susan, that is when elections was to be held.
Yes.
The issue about the list
and counting at the place of poll
caused the election to drag on and gave the PNC and Hoy 2 more years in government. So you have to watch out, because once shenanigans there fail, they will return to bring another shenanigan. They're not finished. When we were over this ID card hurdle, I could bet anything to anybody. The PNC would return again. And that's why we took the commission.
Even the new registrants now are not sure that they will receive their ID cards
Before elections.
Before elections.
Yes.
Yet, the commission is imposing this requirement that those whose ID card is still at GECOM.
So the question is, I mean, look at the contradiction. What will they do with the new registrants who they have not committed to ensuring they have ID cards? What will they do? They would not put them on the list because it follows, if the logic is.
Logical, yeah.
If the logic is those who have not collected their ID card, you're attempting to take them off of the official list of electors, why would you, with the same logic, put those who you have not given their ID cards on the OLE? And therefore, as Gail started out by making a point, it's an illegal activity. It's an activity that is challengeable. It's an activity that will have to be challenged, both politically and legally, because it is not only for now. These precedents set by the chairpersons of the commission and the commission of its function, they will live with us, either for good or for bad.
Yeah.
And that is the reason why it is important, as we have said. It's not a PPP supporters on this list. This list of names of persons are Guyanese. And then they have this thing where they would publish these 20-odd thousand names, and then they would send letters to you to respond in 21 days.
Which you don't know when it begins and when it ends.
Right.
My dearest Susan, if these people, I don't know if the chairman understand the landscape and the geography of this country. A man who lives in Chongmouth or Kaikan, he don't know the last day he saw papers in his life. I don't know when he would see a paper.
Or a letter takes a while to get
It's
in.
safe to say that if this decision stands, it will be challenged in the courts by one side or the other. But that brings me as well to all of these third parties that are launching recently. You know, we hear them talk about all these fancy topics like constitutional reform and all of these things. But we don't hear them calling for free and fair elections.
No.
It seems to be only the PPP carrying this weight on behalf of the electorate.
I suspect, I mean, and that is what I say to people. 90% of people who talk about registration electoral matters, they have no understanding, they have no about the matters. And therefore you have these third parties. I suspect they believe that they really don't care. With a good list or a bad list, you understand me?
Yeah.
They would be at the same place. No. That's the only.
How do
That's
you
the,
hope to have an impact on the
that is the
election?
only logical thing I can say, because any serious political party, Gail would tell you, knows that your contestation of the election and the outcome is dependent on the list presented to you to galvanize your people to go and vote. You understand me?
Absolutely.
If the likely people were to vote for you, they're not on the list.
Yeah, all the heavy lifting, as Barrett said.
We are doing it.
We're doing it, and it's in PNC areas, PPP areas,
Yeah.
other areas, telling people go and get registered, go get your, are you on the list, are you not on the list, etc. So we're doing all the heavy loading, as he said, no?
Yeah.
But and that is, as you said, Susan, correctly, that this is for all Guyanese, and that we're not a party discriminating that, okay, we're not going to this area because it's not new area. They let them deal with what they have to. But I want to remind the listeners of viewers, in 2001, when we had all these agreements, Heard Marston and St. Lucia, to have the constitutional reform, we had started it, the elections were March 2001, sitting in a parliamentary commission on constitutional reform. We went to those elections. There wasn't a big hue and cry by the PNC during the claims and objection and all of that. But on the day or two before the objections ended, they threw a list of 20,000 people that they were objecting to. The PEP had to run and scramble because the names came mostly from areas that were traditionally supporters of the PEP. We had to find almost 20,000 people to get them into GECOM centers to say, I'm alive, I'm here, this is my name, this is my birth certificate, whatever it was. So it shows the duplicity too of the PNC. And they're now concerned when the figures that Joe gave, 3,000, almost 4,000 new registrants, they have the breakdown. They're concerned about the fact that their people are not going out. And so the 20,000, this magical figure of 20,000 is reappearing again in the light of this ID issue, which, as I said, is totally unlawful. And then you have, as Joe referred in the beginning, the 200,000 incorrect entries. They've had from October 1st to now. Where are these 200,000 incorrect entries? Meaning,
Where
wrong
the
name.
objections
Where's all that? So these are all machinations to create confusion, to try to stymie the process, to contaminate the process, to pervert the process, to delegitimize the process. So on March the 2nd, they can challenge it, which is the number one option I think they're playing with. But they could also be playing with the other option. And, that is ensuring that they skew the whole balance so that 20,000, 30,000 people are off the list that should be on it. And to just comment on Joe's thing, the physical difficulties people have. People in October for the local government election went through a claims and objection. They got registered, so the names are on the list now. Didn't collect their ID cards because some of them live in some back dam somewhere. Even for Georgetonians, if you look at the number of Georgetonians who have to collect their ID cards, and that's just not far from where you are. But you're talking about interior areas. The travels they have to go through, the expense, and I was giving an example earlier. If you're in Kaikan, your office is Camarang. One is in Cayuni, one is in Upper Mass. You would have to fly to Georgetown, then Georgetown fly to Camarang to collect your ID card. This is absolute absurd, and therefore, as Joe said, Claudette Singh doesn't know the geography of this area, nor does this country, nor does she understand the complexity of it. And so all these are machinations to really, I think, undermine the integrity of the electoral process in this country, and we gotta fight it.
But even that she doesn't have to understand. All we need her to understand
the lawful
is to
issues.
do what she said she would do after she was sworn in, that she will uphold
Absolutely.
the Constitution, and that's all
Absolutely.
she's required to do.
Yeah.
We are almost out of time. Gail, since you're already talking, let me
Yes.
just have your final comments, and then we'll go to Joe.
Okay. Well, I think I've said a lot, and that is that I think for our viewers, we need Guyanese, not just PPP supporters, to be very vigilant from now. It's 122 days left for elections. And so these sudden decisions and sudden things happening are going to, I think, increase as we get closer to March the 2nd. And therefore, I think everyone needs to be vigilant and to be observant. We're Guyanese. And whatever you vote for, whoever you vote for, our right to vote is sacrosanct. It's a fundamental right of our country. And it should not be denied because you're PPP. It should not be denied if you're PNC. But it must be protected by all Guyanese. So I'm saying, particularly to APNU supporters, do not allow yourselves to be entrapped in these machinations. Stand up for democracy. Stand up for Constitution. Stand up for the right of every Guyanese who is entitled to vote, eligible to vote on March the 2nd in a free and fair election and a peaceful election. That would be an objective that all Guyanese should be working towards.
Joe?
Yes, Susan, as I said, and I'm repeating, for persons who have registered and didn't collect the ID card, whether they did it in 2008 or after that,
2018.
Up to this moment, you should go collect your ID card if you know you don't have the ID card. Importantly, people have to be alert citizens, because as Gail have said and I have indicated earlier, the PNC will not stop. Right up to election day, we will have all kinds of machinations and shenanigans attempt. And the third point is to say to the chairman of the Guyana Elections Commission, you promised this nation you will govern as chairman following the Constitution and the law. We don't want no special privilege, the People's Progressive Party city.
Exactly.
We're just saying to the chairman that we hold you to the standard that you have set.
And it was the oath she made.
Yes, that the oath you gave, and the standard that you have set, that you will govern utilizing the Constitution and the law. Yeah. And our expectation as citizens, all of us, is that you do not allow yourselves to be led to a place where you do things that are illegal and unconstitutional, because the legacy of the 2020 elections will be your legacy. And we would hope that the confidence people had in you to deliver an elections that is credible, we would hope that you can do everything possible to continue to have people feel that way, that sense of confidence, that we can have an election that is free from fear, that we can have an election that is credible, that is fair, and can stand the test of time going forward. And we as Guyanese, all of us, we must speak up and speak out against any machination that will create conflict and contention surrounding our elections.
Gail, Joe, thank you very much for being here. Very interesting discussion. And for those of you who watched and listened to us, thank you very much for joining us.
Well, thank you very much for having us.
Susan.
Thank you, Susan.